All right, let's dive in. Today we're going to be looking at Freida McFadden's The Housemaid series. We've got book reviews, articles, even some reader comments, trying to figure out what's got everyone so hooked on this thing. I mean, this series is a New York Times and USA Today bestseller, over 1 million copies sold, and Hollywood's turning it into a movie.
Yeah.
So is it all the twists and turns,
Right.
the characters, or something else entirely?
Well, even the premise itself, it kind of grabs you right away. You've got Millie, an ex-con, desperate for a fresh start. She lands a job as a housemaid for this, seemingly perfect, wealthy family, the Winchesters. But come on, are things ever really as they appear?
Yeah, and from the reviews, the Winchesters sound far from perfect. It seems like they've got all these dark secrets right under the surface. The first book, The Housemaid, Millie's dealing with all this weird behavior from Nina, the wife. And then there's the strange dynamic with Andrew, the husband, and, of course, their daughter, Cecile.
Oh, Cecilia, one reviewer actually said she was like straight out of horror film. Yeah, this like creepy kid vibe. But I mean, that unsettling feeling, that seems to be a big part of what pulls readers in, right? McFadden creates this atmosphere where you're just constantly on edge.
And then there's the plot twists. The reviews are full of people raving about the twists, saying they were completely surprised and couldn't put the book down.
Oh yeah, like solving a puzzle.
Exactly.
But it's not just one big twist at the end either. People were finding twists throughout, these little clues, and it just keeps you guessing and trying to piece it all together.
So then things get really interesting, right? Nina, who you think is this like fragile, tormented wife, she's not a victim at all. She's the mastermind behind this whole elaborate plan.
It's a total shocker. And it really makes you think twice about like who to trust in the story. You think you're reading one kind of story and then bam.
Yeah, McFadden pulls a rug right out from under you, and she doesn't stop there. The second book, The Housemaid's Secret, Millie's working for a new family, so there's a whole new mystery to solve. But get this, some characters from the first book actually return, adding this extra layer of complexity and connection between the books.
Oh, that's interesting. Like she's weaving these separate storylines together.
Yeah.
I did see that the reviews for this one were a bit more mixed, though. Some people thought it was slower than the first book. Others still couldn't put it down.
Maybe it's because the first book set such a high bar,
Yeah.
so fast-paced.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I was reading a bit about Freida McFadden herself.
Uh-huh.
And get this, she actually writes under a pen name.
Oh, right. She's a doctor, isn't she?
Yeah, a practicing physician specializing in brain injuries.
That's so wild.
It's kind of crazy to think about, like, could any of that medical knowledge, about brain injuries be finding its way into her writing, how she portrays the characters' mental states?
It definitely makes you wonder, right? Like maybe she's using her expertise to, like, I don't know, add this layer of authenticity that you wouldn't get otherwise. Even if it's not super obvious, it really makes you think, like, how easily our perception of reality can be, manipulated.
Especially when it comes to these kinds of thrillers, right? Psychological thrillers.
Right.
It's like McFadden plays with our expectations. We think we know what's going on, who to trust, and then, yeah, she just flips the script.
Exactly.
And her writing style seems to really emphasize that. From the reviews, her books are super accessible, easy to read. She's very direct, focused on keeping that plot moving.
Some people might see that as a weakness, right? The lack of, like, deep character development or really descriptive prose. But honestly, I think it works to her advantage in this genre. It keeps you hooked. You always want to know what's going to happen next. And it doesn't bog you down with too much detail.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's perfect for a busy reader. Someone who wants to get caught up in a good story, but doesn't have hours and hours to spend on it.
Exactly. And you mentioned McFadden playing with her expectations, which reminds me, this whole unreliable narrator thing, that's pretty common in thrillers, right?
Oh, yeah.
But McFadden seems to use it in a way that, I don't know, it just constantly keeps you off balance.
You're right. It's not just that you can't trust the narrator, it's that you're never quite sure who to trust at all.
Yeah, and just when you think you've figured it out,
There's another twist.
another twist.
And it makes you question everything.
Totally. And what's so cool is how those twists, they force you to reevaluate everything that came before.
Right.
You start seeing the characters' motives and their actions in a totally new light.
It's like, were they always lying? Or were they just caught up in this whole web of manipulation themselves?
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
And it feels like everyone's playing a part, even Millie in a way. She's trying to build this new life, but she keeps getting pulled into these situations where nothing is what it seems.
Right. And because she's an ex-con, there's this added layer of vulnerability there, too. Like, you're not even always sure if you can fully trust her perspective.
That's so true. It makes the whole reading experience so much more interactive. You're constantly trying to figure out the truth from these like fragmented perspectives.
You're never really sure if you're getting the full picture.
Right. So we've got these gripping plots, the mind-bending twists. But what about the deeper themes that McFadden explores? In the reviews, people mention it's not just about the thrills and chills. There's something more going on.
Yeah, she really delves into this, like, darker side of human nature, you know?
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, these aren't just stories about, like, bad guys doing bad things. It's about the choices we all make, the things that motivate us, the secrets we keep hidden.
The facades we put up, right? Those masks we wear to protect ourselves.
Sort of that.
And what happens when those masks start to slip?
Makes you think, like, how well do we really know the people around us?
Right. It's scary to think about.
Yeah, and it taps into these universal anxieties we all have, right? The fear of being betrayed, the fear of not being seen for who we truly are.
The fear of the unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not presented in this, like, preachy way or overly analytical. It's all woven into these fast-paced, entertaining stories.
Right, she manages to balance those really thrilling elements with these deeper questions about, you know, human nature, which is really hard to do. It's not just mindless entertainment. It's something that sticks with you, you know, even after you finish the book.
And you can really see that in the reader reactions. Some people, they're just in it for the twists and turns, the entertainment, but other people are drawn to these more complex themes.
Yeah, like what does it even mean to be good or bad? Can people really change? How much are we shaped by, you know, our past experiences? Those questions really resonate with everyone, no matter what you like to read.
It's fascinating how McFadden can take these thriller tropes that we've seen before and give them this psychological depth. It's more than just a, you know, popcorn read.
Totally. I think that's a big part of why the series is so popular. She's tapped into something, I don't know, kind of primal, something that fascinates us but also kind of disturbs us.
Like she's holding up a mirror to society.
Exactly.
Okay, before we wrap up, let's talk about this movie adaptation that's coming out. Seems like there's a lot of buzz around it, especially with Paul Feig directing and Sydney Sweeney and Amanda Seyfried starring.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can capture that same psychological complexity on screen.
Right.
It's hard to translate that atmosphere, the internal thoughts of the characters, you know?
Especially in a book that relies so much on psychological suspense.
Yeah. But, I mean, Feig's done it all, comedies, thrillers. He might be the perfect person for this.
And Sweeney and Seyfried are both amazing actresses. They both played characters with so much depth. I'm really curious to see how they bring Millie and Nina to life.
Yeah, how are they going to handle those, like, inner struggles of the characters? You know, those moments where they're wrestling with their own morality, trying to figure out who they can trust. Can they convey that visually?
It'll be interesting to see.
Definitely something to watch for. But whether the film lives up to the books or not, there's no doubt Freida McFadden has created something special with the Housemaid series.
Absolutely. She's combined these page-turning thriller elements with a real exploration of human psychology.
And that's not easy to do.
So what's the takeaway for our listener?
If you're looking for a thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat and make you think about, you know, the darker side of human nature, the Housemaid series is definitely worth checking out.
It's a wild ride, for sure. Full of twists. And it definitely makes you think about the secrets people keep.
Absolutely.
It makes you think about the masks people wear, doesn't it? Like we all have those different versions of ourselves that we show to the world.
It's true. And what's fascinating is, like, McFadden really gets into the why behind the masks. Is it self-preservation, manipulation, or just, you know, trying to cope in a world that feels so messed up?
That's a really good point. It's not enough to just say, oh, this character is lying. McFadden makes you consider the circumstances that might, you know, lead someone to be deceptive or hide who they really are.
Exactly. And that complexity is what makes her story so interesting. It's not just like black and white, good versus evil. It's about those gray areas where people are making tough choices, often with consequences they didn't even intend.
And you can see how that plays out in the reader reactions. Some people find those morally ambiguous characters really frustrating, but others are completely drawn to them.
It's like a Rorschach test, almost. What you see in those characters and their choices might say more about you as a reader than about the story itself.
Ooh, that's an interesting thought. So bigger picture here, what does the Housemaid series tell us about our fascination with, you know, dark secrets and hidden motives?
Well, on one hand, I think it's a form of escapism, right? We get to safely explore those taboo things, those forbidden things, without actually having to go through them ourselves.
Yeah, it's like peeking behind the curtain of these perfect lives.
Yeah.
And finding the mess underneath.
Exactly. And there's the suspense too, right? When you know characters have secrets, it just creates this tension, this underlying tension that keeps you hooked. You're waiting for the truth to come out, and the anticipation is almost as good as,
The reveal itself.
Exactly. It's that classic page-turner thing, where you have to know what happens next.
Even if it means staying up way too late.
Right.
But there's got to be something deeper going on too, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think this fascination with secrets, it speaks to our curiosity about human nature. Like, we want to understand what makes people tick, what drives them to do the things they do.
Especially when those things are, well, kind of messed up.
Exactly.
So it's not just about the shock value of the secrets. It's about trying to understand the psychology behind them. The motivations, the justifications.
Well, the consequence.
Yeah. And that's what McFadden does so well.
Absolutely. She takes these plot points that could be sensationalistic, over the top, but she grounds them in these believable human emotions, human experiences.
That's what makes her story stick with you.
For sure.
So for our listener who maybe hasn't read this series yet, what's the one thing they should be prepared for?
Be prepared to have your assumptions challenged. McFadden is a master of, misdirection, and she's not afraid to push the boundaries of what we think is okay.
But she does it in a way that's smart, right? It's thrilling, but also makes you think.
Absolutely. She's not giving you all the answers.
And that's what makes a great storyteller, isn't it? Someone who can entertain us, but also make us think about the world in a new way.
Totally.
So if you're ready for a deep dive into the dark side of human nature, a story that'll keep you guessing and maybe even make you question your own perceptions.
The Housemaid series is for you.
It might even make you look at the people in your own life a little differently.
You never know.
Happy reading.